getting into business with people that we trust that are better at other things that I'm not actually that good at. I think that was a big realization. Like, hey, it doesn't just have to be my way or the highway. It's like, hey, these are the standards. Here's how we need to do it. Here's how we need to operate. So I think that was key for me. And I think at the end of the day, it really just boils down to people, right? Like getting into business with the right people.
Good afternoon, everybody. David Donaldson here, along with my associate, Joe Martin, and we're really excited to bring to you today Sean and Corey from Dutko and Ragen. And I've had the privilege of working with these guys for a couple of years now, and their journey is nothing short of just awesome, right? To growing their businesses through the different ownerships that they have and where they have today and the lives that they impact. I can't wait to hear from them.
I'm just impressed at these guys in general, but you should see them in like real life though. They're not that awesome.
Yeah, dude, pretty ordinary, man.
Well, I just want to have Sean's life. Look at this. He's in a beach chair taking on this interview, talking about entrepreneurial impact. If that's not like living up a great life, I don't know what is.
Hey, man, honestly, I wish it was that. I'm on my front porch here. We got a construction zone behind me. We've been living in the basement for 2 months. So if you hear that knocking, that's what I'm dealing with.
The lifestyle of the rich and famous right there.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, that's the fun part about it, right? You guys, you love what you're doing. You're rolling. You're comfortable in what you're doing. And, the impacts of construction is a part of your everyday lives, right? And it's all part of what we do.
Absolutely. No, for sure. Well, we really appreciate being here. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So why don't we go back? Why don't we talk about like how did this all come about? Where did Dutko Ragen stem from, and what drove you guys to get here?
Yeah, Corey
or Sean, whoever wants to go first.
Yes, for sure. So I met Sean in 2008, working at another big team locally, W. Dorrell's team, and we were there from 2000. Sean started 2007. I started 2008. Learned a ton, sold a ton of real estate. Got the taste of what it would be like to kind of be a high producer and a top producing team in the country, and had a good time with it. I guess wanted to start flipping houses and kind of helped that company start flipping houses back then. My dad's a carpenter. Sean's dad worked for a home builder for a long time, and we kind of got that division going. I ran some foreclosures for a while, and we realized there with the team that we weren't really quite able at that time to flip houses together and kind of build that piece of the business together. And so we saw an opportunity to kind of go out and try that on our own, and kind of had that itch, wanted to scratch that entrepreneurial itch. And so, yeah, we kind of left there in 2012, sold real estate, flipped houses full-time, sold real estate part-time for about 2 years, and then kind of missed the traditional real estate route. We were fortunate. We had a lot of, referrals coming in and past clients at that point, and decided to kind of grow both together 2014.
That's a fascinating story. So one of the biggest things is entrepreneurial impact. What, growing up with your dad being a carpenter, was he his own boss, like started his own business, or did he work for a bigger firm? Like, how did that impact like your childhood? Because that's I had no idea. I had no idea that part of your journey.
Great question. So my mom actually owned a cleaning company, a very small cleaning company, and worked residential cleaning vacation rentals down in Sandbridge, Virginia Beach area. And never really had more than like 2 or 3 employees. She would get to like a 2, 3, or 4 employees and kind of hit a ceiling, and had a hard time keeping the wheels going. But had a good solid referral based business. My dad was the same. He was a carpenter, worked for other builders. Both of them, I learned my work ethic for them for sure. They work hard, they take pride in their work, but they never really were had aspirations, never really wanted to grow or able to grow a big business. So anywhere from 1 to 3 people in every given point. My parents were separated, so I actually found myself going to work with both parents early and often. And so, I joke, like I started working at 4 years old because I was probably not very helpful, but I was changing trash cans at different places and kind of just tagging along with my mom and my dad, at different points in my childhood. So learned a lot from them for sure, but also realized that being an entrepreneur is an absolute grind, and, working nights, working weekends. And I remember being at the beach working on Saturday and Sundays and being like, man, I want to be the family that's driving out the surfboards and the cooler on the back of the truck, not the one here working at the beach on the weekends. And so I vividly remember that growing up, but I learned a ton.
I heard you say that she was always able to get to like 2 to 3 employees. What is your guys' sales team? So I want to tie something in here around like, you saw that as you look back on your life, you look at your mom's being able to scale that cleaning companies, you got the 2 or 3. I'd imagine you're saying that now because of like what your sales business has grown to. So I don't think we actually got this to share that. What have you got built? Like Sean, Corey, whatever. What's the size of your business? What is the different vertical integration that you've had in that? What are the different business units? Like, give us that world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so right now we are a team with 7 producing agents. We have some support staff that helps just kind of run ops and keep everybody in line so we can kind of do our, everybody do their 20%. We also have a renovating and like flipping company that Corey and my dad run in terms of just, rehabbing homes, taking houses that are just in complete disrepair and bringing them back to former glory. And we have a wholesaling business where we target off-market deals, right? And just try to bring those for investors or clients. And then also we have our own rental portfolio. So trying to have like just a one-stop shop for real estate. And we have other, I would say, aspirations when it comes to, potential construction companies, other JVs that we kind of have ideas about, just where we can really be a holistic real estate one-stop shop for whatever anybody needs. That's really what our goal is, and to be able to deliver customer service in every aspect of that.
That's pretty awesome. When it comes to those brands for Dutko and Ragen, how's that breaking down for you guys for the residential resale, the wholesale, and the business? I know there's not an apples to apples comparison there, but how are those growing for you?
Yeah, for sure. So like we've last couple of years, we've been right to like 180 and 205 units, like 100 to 120 million for Dutko Ragen the last couple of years. And there was a handful of years where the investment part of the business made up at least 50% between our own investments and client investments. And then once we hired a MAPS coach, we realized that's a fun business. It's a dynamic. It's kind of our niche, but we wanted to change the pillars and diversify a little bit. So now investments, we try to keep between 30 and 40% of the total business in any given year of the real estate business. Okay. So it's called 60 to 70 units on both sides. And then, past client referrals, open house and lead calls and Sphere makes up our other pillars. And then we try to personally complete 10 to 15 projects in any given year. And then, we try to hit anywhere from like 15 to 30 projects with other clients, investors, builders as well. And then in an ideal world, we get either bring them the deal off market or on market. And then, when the project's completed, we kind of see ourselves like kind of a consultant during that process, a realtor, an investment consultant. And then we list the property for them as well when the job's done.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like to piggyback off of that too, like one of the beautiful things about it, and we didn't necessarily like plan it that way, but they tend to be very complementary, right? So, when you're helping investors and builders, whether our own projects or others, you're then going to be selling the best product on the market. So that is a great lead driver for our sales team, from open houses, online sales, lead calls, all of that stuff, just to get in front of new potential people that we can serve and hopefully start building a long-term relationship with. So they've kind of, consistently grown together. And what we've really tried to figure out is how can we maximize those listings and every listing in general, but really those because you're getting tons of foot traffic and, it's something that not everybody sees. Obviously, all the neighbors have been, seeing it, the transition for the last, anywhere between 3 to 12 months, depending on the project. So it's a great time to kind of get into the community. My dad's great. He's usually on the job sites every day, and he's great at talking with people, making friends with the neighbors. So, but it all kind of goes hand in hand, which has kind of been cool to see how it's grown together.
So what does that look like? Your dad being involved? Is that something that was kind of that way from the beginning, or how did that transition for you guys?
Yeah, well, honestly, the great thing is I don't really work with him at all. Like Corey deals with him. Yeah. Keep that at arm's length as much as possible. We want to have, Wednesday family night dinner still be peaceful. So it's good. But he worked with a 30-year custom home builder, and they ended up kind of closing up shop shortly after the Great Recession. So, the owner had kind of made his money. But after my dad had worked there for 25 odd years, he kind of found himself like, what am I going to do now? So the timing really worked out perfectly. And honestly, there's nobody else we could trust, more than someone like that. And so it's really cool to be able to work with family. I'd say a huge blessing. And he brings a lot of stuff to the table that Corey and I don't have. when you combine people that have a wide array of skills is great. And his understanding of construction and just knowing, what needs to happen, how it needs to be done right. Reputation is a big piece of who we are. So like that quality control piece at this level is huge for us.
Yeah, we're kind of the numbers guys, the vision. We design the floor plans, design the finishes, interior design, layout, price point, know the numbers, and then Tim kind of helps me implement it. So I'm kind of the nuts and bolts, and he does a QC. So he's the boots on the ground, and I'm kind of designing the house, coming up with the budget, what we need to buy it for, what our budget is to renovate or expand it, and what it's worth in the back end. And then we kind of turn it over to Sean and Dutko Ragen on the listing side to sell their product, but we kind of have to deliver a sellable product, if that makes sense. And then Tim is that quality control guy to make sure everything's happening behind the drywall, make sure everything's done well. And I would say it kind of came out of necessity. So we were talking about this on a panel we were on the other day with Sheila, actually, on Thursday in Kingstown. And they're like, why'd you start a team? And one of the things we go back to is at one point we had 15, 16 deals pending. It was me and Sean, and we had 8 projects going. So we're doing construction management for 8 flips, plus, selling 15, 20 homes at a time. And we forgot to turn in an EMD until it settled, which is not a proud moment, but a moment you realize.
Hey, listen, I get the details. I'm not always a detail guy. My bad.
I mean Sean. I was just trying to be nice. But essentially, you kind of realize, you need help. You can't do everything. And we were making great money, and we were very productive. And we thought we were efficient, but you realize you're not very efficient. You own multiple jobs and not a company. And so about that time is when we started hiring for the sales team, and we also brought in. At that point, Tim, Sean's dad, was more of like a consultant for us. We would pay him on a per project basis to come in and meet inspectors and do QC on framing and stuff like that. And we realized we need full-time help. And so, like Sean mentioned, timing just kind of worked out well. And he's been with us since full-time 2014, 15?
Yep.
So that brings him a good, and I don't, Sean or Corey, whoever guy is better at answering this question, is that one of the biggest struggles that I see with agents go from highly successful single to successful large scale is getting leverage. So you just described multiple different businesses that you have full-time employees hired to, or people you contract with, you've got a great relationship with. What was your change going from selling a bunch of homes with Debbie Dogrel to building your enterprise? Like, what was the linchpin? Like, if you were to give 3 nuggets on this is what, either I failed miserably at and avoid this, or these are the things that unlocked what we've built today, what would be those 3 things?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would say one for me was really, really starting to understand leverage, both with tools, systems, and people, right? That I can't do everything. I can't be in 2 places at once. So how can we basically, duplicate our time and make sure that we can be what we need to be for each and every client? And I think, getting into business with people that we trust that are better at other things that I'm not actually that good at, I think that was a big realization. Hey, it doesn't just have to be my way or the highway. It's hey, these are the standards. Here's how we need to do it. Here's how we need to operate. So I think that was key for me. And I think at the end of the day, it really just boils down to people, right? Getting into business with the right people. We've learned a lot. We've, Gary always says, slow to hire, quick to fire. And, we're very relationship driven people, and anybody that we get into business with, we want this to be a very long-term thing where whatever their goals and aspirations are for work, life, professional, all aspects, we want to be able to help them achieve that and live the life that they want to. So I think that was something for me where it was, just seeing how important the people aspect of it is. Sometimes you can just throw something at the wall and hopefully something sticks. We've really built the family bond. We live by that. And I think that's where, we all love each other and we're in it together. I think, and having people that are going in the same direction, that's key. You got to make sure everyone knows what the vision is, how we're going to get there, and let's start rowing together.
Yeah, for sure. And add on that, I think one for me was, we hired an apps coach. I talk about that a lot. We hired a coach in 2014, and that's when we really kind of help, identify your highest and best, what's your 20%. And then we started hiring talent. So bringing on Sean's dad was great. We brought on a super talented operational person. I think we grew one January from 3 or 4 sales. So next year we did 11. and we weren't working anymore. And you kind of realize there's other talented people out there that like to do the operational behind the scenes stuff that, we hated doing. But when you're starting out, you do everything. Like you kind of define yourself on a work ethic. And I realized like, wow, there's people out there that love doing the things that we hate doing. And even though that relationship was short lived, because Sean was great, like Sean actually lets go probably sometimes too quickly, whereas I tend to hold on too long. And so that person left, got recruited away by a peer of ours that we actually coached on how to hire and onboard an ops person. I won't bring, that go too deep there, but, learn a lot, right?
I do remember that.
But anyways, on the way out, one of the things that they mentioned was that they felt micromanaged by me. They felt like I didn't have full confidence or faith or trust in them. And so we kind of, at least me personally, took that as a growth opportunity as a leader and went to the team that we did have and kind of did like a same exit interview with them and got mixed reviews. And so I realized like, I need to let go. I need to trust the process. I coming from a family that had two small businesses that did everything and were basically owned a job, like a high level of detail is my thing and like making sure things happen the way that I want them to happen. But I kind of realized like I need to trust and put in a process and get out of the way of someone that's talent. Or like, I may have, been part of the reason that person didn't stick around longer. And so to me, that was I think that was a big catalyst for us as an organization to kind of step out of doing everything to then go and hire, interview, train, and get out of the way of talented people.
And I think with that too, it's, that trust but verify. We're always smarter than, there's got to be a shortcut or something, or I think this is the right way to do it. We did it the wrong way. We went and hired, people to take on an agent role. We really needed a rock star ops person that can just kind of play point. We can go out and do our thing, where instead we brought on more people like us, and there was no one that could support necessarily more volume, right? So we didn't have the infrastructure, and that was something that was very eye-opening, right? If you have the right ops and support and processes and systems, we can actually, every agent go out there and sell a lot more if they're just doing their top 20%, which is meeting people, going on the consults, right? Building the value, casting the vision, helping clients get to their goal, but then somebody on the back end helping do all of the other details. Like that was a big learning experience for us. It's like, it's not just, oh, we need a bunch of agents. We need someone that can support a hub, and we need to build that system and infrastructure. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off.
So let me ask you, so obviously you guys have been doing this since 2014. So it's 8 years now that you've been building Dutko and Ragen. However, it's not always an easy thing, right? You guys are doing fantastic numbers now, but what did you learn then that you know now that was a life lesson for you that you could share with others and be like, hey, people come, people go. You've had some sustainability on your team, but you've also had turnover, right? And what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I will say like we were fortunate. So, we did what everybody says not to, right? Hire friends and family. So we got into business, like 80% of our team was friends and family, which was great. Like we live life together. Like Sean said, we travel together. We take teams on annual trips. We do happy hours. Like we do weekends, like happy hours. Like we had a good time. And, it's been really rewarding. So last year, COVID hit. All of a sudden realized like it's challenging to be a good quality leader from afar and via Zoom and conference calls, right? So that we did that for a while. Last year, 2021, we actually had 3 agents leave that were close friends of ours in some capacity that we've been with us for anywhere from 2.5 to 6 years. And we hadn't really experienced that turnover before. And so we had to really look back at ourselves and say, was it systems? Was it models? Was it lack of growth? Was it lack of vision? Was our world not big enough? And we realized that to really we should have recognized it sooner, but Gary had challenged us all in 2020. If you guys remember, to cut expenses, trim the fat, get lean and mean, carry 12 months expenses to make sure we weather the storm. So what we did is we inadvertently cut a lot of our marketing and a lot of our growth because it was face-to-face marketing, client events, things like that we didn't turn back on quickly enough. And so we realized that our lead gen budget, Sean, remind me if I'm off, but went from like, we were spending basically 2% of revenue on lead gen, not just shy of 2%. And it wasn't even intentional. It's just that we basically got so lean and our business grew 2 years in a row that we're like, this works. But then, the economy opened back up, things changed a little bit. And we were so busy being busy and in that kind of grind, that growth mindset, that we didn't take a step back and stay 3 to 6 months ahead of that. So we lost some talented people for a couple of reasons, but ultimately we kind of led back to like, we weren't providing enough sure thing quality leads to the team to retain talent long-term. And like from a growth and a leadership perspective, one of those agents came to us with very little, net worth, and they left our business a millionaire, and they were making more than $500,000 a year for 2 years. And so we felt like we were providing more than enough opportunity to those that wanted it. But if you take a step back, we realized like from the organizational growth, we were actually missing the mark in our leading indicators. And so we've taken the last 6 months since then and kind of completely not tore down the business, but completely rebuilt and have a much more diverse lead funnel now than we did 6 months ago. I'll let Sean touch on that.
No, exactly. Well, and also like, I think to kind of hit on that too, it always stings, right? When people decide, hey, it's, sorry, guys, it's not going to work out or we're going in another direction. So we've all been on each side of that. And it's never fun. I think the biggest thing too is like not taking it personal, but like Corey said, when it is friends, it's tough to not take things personal. And I think that's where you really got to have like the life motto. And I try to apply this is like, there's no losses, only lessons. So like, the way I try to approach it is, hey, look, like what can we take from this? What can we learn from it and apply it moving forward to make ourselves better? And honestly, like coming from a place of, hey, I want everybody to really go out there. We all have one life to live, right? So go chase your dream. My dream's not your dream, and vice versa. So I think that's where it kind of comes down to, if we can build something together where everyone's dreams are getting fulfilled, and that's what we're doing, and we're making a bigger impact and helping more people. That's the ultimate goal. But sometimes you got to do that apart. So I think that's, that's one of those things, though, you can't get hung up on it, right? It's like hey, I got divorced, right? So it's like, what happened? You're replaying everything. What could I have done differently? And again, it's like, you know what? Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Everything happens for a reason. And like everything has its own timing and season of life. So I think just kind of taking that and being able to roll with the punches and saying, all right, there's a bigger plan here, but like, what can I take away and apply it to be better for myself and for everyone else around me? So I think that's kind of the approach that we take. But yeah, kind of going back to what Corey said, bringing on, Gary challenged us, like the biggest thing with teams too, is you got to be the group that provides leads and opportunities to the team, right? Yes, we can teach everybody how to get into their sphere and how to dig that up. That's a huge part of our business. But like, what other pillars do you have that is breeding opportunities for everybody? So that's where, we're not a big online lead team, but there has been success in that, right? So we learned some of that stuff. We've been ramping up and perfecting our open house conversion and just process there. So, and adapting, getting videos going, like just kind of getting into 2022. So this has been the year where we brought on a long-term friend of ours to kind of help run the hub and create, something that was going to be awesome for clients and great for the team, hopefully increase efficiency and productivity while just streamlining the processes. So this has been a year where you feel like you take a step forward and 2 or 3 steps back just because you're kind of revamping everything. So, we switched over to Follow Up Boss, getting like everything online, Spacio, Sisu, all these different things that, integrate with one another and just kind of, hey, what would we want if we were joining a team that basically allows me to go be me and do what I do best?
So those are some amazing things that you guys have like gone through and failed forward through a lot of stuff. My question now, and I think this has to do with a lot of first telling your story, through all these amazing things and hardworking and long hours and giving up to people and figuring things out, what have you guys gained from it? So when you talk about like entrepreneurial impact, not only how has your life changed based on all these different businesses you've created, but then also how has it impacted other people? So outside of like financial and wealth creation in a house, like how has it truly changed the trajectory of yourself as well as the team members?
For sure. I mean, I think now, 10 years ago, our biggest goal for ourselves was to be the best investor and best realtor you could be, right? And now, I look at how do we continue to develop as leaders, right? How do we grow organizations and develop ourselves as leaders? So I think personally, that's been the biggest growth for me the last 10 years. And also, while I think we've identified strengths and weaknesses, while I love leading and coaching people and mentoring people, I don't necessarily love managing, right? So we've been able to bring on a high level manager, but then also from impacting others, there's people in our organization that have become millionaires since they've been with us. And there's people in the organization that went from making 40 or 50K a year to now making, a few $100,000 a year. They have second homes, they have nice vehicles, they have, lifestyles, college funds set aside. So I think for us, we realize that as our world gets bigger, we need to make it large enough for others to stay within it. But it also, as our world has gotten bigger, we've been able to bring others along and provide opportunity along the way, which, brings me energy, brings us energy. And at the same time, like our lifestyle, our net worth, our schedule at certain times of year, and as we continue to progress, has gotten better and better as well. So it's the rising tides analogy where, the better we are, the better our team is, the better our organization is, the better and more rich all of our lives hopefully should become. And I think the culture that we started with, where we met, that was not the case. Like, even though it was a high producing, successful company, it was not that mindset necessarily. So we've worked hard to preach work-life balance and to help our people build wealth while also appreciating, friends, family, and balance as well. And that's something we take passion in coaching people in.
Definitely. And I also think, like, I originally got into real estate because I loved real estate. I feel like I was a real estate junkie. Back in high school, I'd be driving around and telling my parents about the new developments that were taking place throughout the area. So like I always just had kind of a passion for it. And, I have a sister with special needs. She's profoundly deaf. So my whole family signs. And so originally, you're kind of getting into it. I got to make money. I'm going to be the one that's going to try to make sure she's okay, doesn't have to worry about stuff, and, just kind of take care of the family. But then as you kind of hit your certain personal milestones, you do realize like how big the world is, right? Like, we're just a very minuscule little piece of it. And there's a lot of people that, need help and have their own goals and aspirations. And I think really, you hear people talk about like leaving a legacy. It's now really gotten to like how many people's lives can we make better because we were able to be a part of it in some capacity, whether it's a team member, whether it's a client, whether it's whoever, like how can we truly leave the world a better place and make a difference? Like, that's really what the legacy is. And that's what I want it to be. It's not about personal gain or anything like that. We're not taking it with us. So how do we, when we're gone, what are people going to say about us and how we lived our lives?
I really enjoy that. And I look at what you guys have been saying, and I hear it's a common theme, and it's come through a couple of the answers, right? That the people that we have working with us and the lives that we've changed, just financially as a start, but then whether they're still with you, they've kind of moved. Think about that compound effect, right? And you guys aren't afraid to reinvest in yourselves emotionally and looking at, okay, this worked for a while, but we needed to pivot or we needed to shift, whether it was market driven or your systems driven, right? You guys are like, okay, let's figure this out and keep getting bigger. And I love that about you guys, that you haven't figured it all out, but you keep trying. And
far from it, man. Well, and that's the thing too. I feel like I'm a firm believer in, like, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Like, it's very easy to get complacent, and, and I'm not saying like, don't be content, right? I'm content in every season of life, but like, don't get complacent. Like, we're still here. We're still breathing every day we wake up. Like, there's something for us to do. Like, there's a reason we're still here. So it's like, is it really just to kind of sit back and get the mailbox money keeps coming in so we can go enjoy life? Like, I'm sure there's a part of that, but like, there's bigger things out there, and it's not just, again, like about our personal gain. I think that's where, like, when you can really kind of hone into that, that drives you, right? I can see how your why is always changing depending on where you are in life. Like, what is your why? When I was 25, it's different than where I am now at 37, right? And it'll probably be different when I'm 45, but hopefully it continues to expand and grow and not shrink. So I think when it starts to shrink, that's when, in a way, we're dying.
Yeah, like, we just took the team to St. Martin in December to celebrate a good year. And we had 22, 23 people. And like, it's awesome to kind of step back and see those photos. And the photo every year kind of grows, gets wider, right? And now, like, fast forward a couple of years, I think we'd like to see that be 50, 75, 100 people that we have a direct impact on and can take them on trips. And, some people have never left the country. And so we're working with them to get passports and get their families, to come along and things. And so that's the cool part, is you kind of, it's kind of surreal when you see those moments. And we've got a much bigger vision. Yeah, David, we're absolutely still figuring it out. I mean, sometimes you think, oh, we cracked this code. And then the next week you're like, dude, the wheels are falling off. What are we doing wrong here? And I think you realize technology changes, the markets change, post-COVID, like, everything's changed. And then also, because we had little turnover, we were able to coach and mentor people for 4, 5, 6 years. And a good person that's well-trained and has good communication with you, like, trumps a good system a lot of times. So when those people tend to turn over, you realize our systems have actually gotten outdated or whatever, over the time. We just didn't realize it because our people were good. And so now we need to rebuild that system so that person can be plug and play. And Gary tells us this all the time. And sometimes, honestly, like I'm sure you guys, as running businesses, exhausting. Like be Coach K, be Coach Calipari, where you're basically you're building a squad of 12 starters, so 12 players. You're going to have your freshmen, your sophomores, they get recruited away after a year or two because they're top talent. They're going to the NBA or their transfer portal. And then you've got your fourth and fifth year seniors. So if you get to that fourth and fifth year, it's gravy. I think Joe just jumped out.
We lost Joe. Yeah, look, I don't want to offend people down in North Carolina, but when you invoke Coach K and you go Calipari and not Krzyzewski, I think we could have some people getting upset with you guys. So I think
Joe jumped out. Is that why he jumped out?
He might have. I don't know if he's a Dookie or not, but we might have lost him.
But I mean, I'm a Duke fan. I'm a basketball fan. But when he doesn't even talk about coaches, but he's just saying like build a starting squad so that you can be prepared to lose your top talent after a year or two. And if you have a fifth year senior, then that's like icing on the cake, but you always have to be recruiting. So that's, when you have that turnover, you realize there's a lot of truth to that, even though it doesn't always feel as like, enjoyable, because like that churn of like, turnover is kind of somewhat of a grind, especially when you're in deep relationships with people. But I think we realize that now, if you want a big business and a big life, you have to be constantly looking for talent, interviewing talent, and have a system that talented person can step in as a freshman and have an impact immediately.
Yeah, always being on the lookout for what you don't know and who might be, and being open to the idea that, wow, this person might fit in my world, right? Yep. You don't know yet, but you recognize the who, exactly. Right? That they're an empire builder, and be like, hey, this person, I got to get them involved. And I've seen you guys move different pieces around over time and try to see what works and doesn't, and that's pretty cool too, right? Let me ask you this, and I've heard you reference coaching a lot, and I think we all understand how important coaching is, right? And how it has been for you. But aside from that, or maybe it is that, is there any one thing that has impacted you guys the most over the last decade of what you guys have been doing?
I think it comes back to coaching and like self-development. Like, we listen to a lot of podcasts too, and the one common thing you hear time and time again, at least for me, is like, you invest in yourself. There's a certain amount of time, a certain amount of weeks, a certain amount of dollars every year to invest in your personal development. And so I attribute that to like reading podcasts and coaching. There's people that have done this at a higher level well before we did. And then also staying in groups of other like-minded people that push the way you think. To me, those are the one things, other than just getting a business with talent. I think the drive for us has always been there. Like, I'm a driven, competitive person. I think I could say the same for Sean, but it's, learning those other pieces along the way, and the coaching and mentorship has been huge or invaluable for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think just kind of always remaining like learning based, right? Not getting to the point of like, okay, hey, don't let being good keep you from being great. And I think that's one thing that just by being able to take in, and like Gary always says too, and I know we just say, hey, like Gary says, but he says a lot of good stuff. And it's like, he's like, if you're in the room and you're the biggest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. So like, I think just trying to continuously be around people that are big thinkers, that are positive people, and that are looking to just better themselves. I think, who you associate with is super important as well. Not just, strictly coaching here or there, but just kind of who we associate with. I think that's super important.
And I think it's important. So remember, our audience, right, is not just going to be people that know who Gary is. So when we talk about Gary, we're talking about Gary Keller, right? Literally the guy who wrote the book, expanded the world's largest real estate company, right? And you guys are fortunate now, from where you've come and where you are now, to be in a room with Gary and learn from Gary, which few of us will ever be able to atone to. But this is this thing that I think I want you guys to get across to everybody else that works with you, for you, or you're able to influence, is that anybody can do it, right? I'm not saying that it's easy. It's incredibly hard. And you guys have been able to do it. But at the same point, you guys start where everybody else started, which is 0 transactions, right? But you had a drive and a forthright and mindset to say, this, if I do it, can happen. And then you find yourselves in a room with somebody like Gary Keller.
Well, they say all the time, it gets simple, but not easy, right? And it's hard, but it's simple. And I will say personally, like, I've been in rooms with other agents or other top producers or business owners who are like, I went to Yale, I went to Harvard, my dad's a diplomat, or their parents are like high-level attorneys. I'm like, my mom had a cleaning company, my dad's a carpenter. Like, I went to a school called Gang Run. Like, sometimes I feel like I don't even belong in that room, but it's kind of you feel like it's a cool moment that you can scrap and grind and grind your way to wherever you want to be, as long as you're willing to put the work in. and learn along the way. So it's been a bumpy road, and we're not done growing, like Sean said, but it is cool to see that you can, build a business and kind of, bootstrap it along the way.
I think when you look at that and you say, the humility that comes from you guys, that pours from you guys, right? To recognize that, hey, yes, you're in that room, but that hasn't changed who you are.
No.
Right. And that story is the same for a lot of people that are in that room.
Yep. No, exactly. Well, and I've heard one person say this once, and it's like, having money doesn't change who you are, it just reveals who you are. So I think that's kind of, like your perspective doesn't change. And to kind of go back of like, with what Corey was just saying, like, I think that following the process though, like not trying to take a shortcut, don't try to outsmart anything. Like it's been written down. Like this is here's your plan, go do it. And there was a saying where it's like, if you're persistent, you will get it. And if you're consistent, you will keep it. So, the persistence is what takes you to get to certain levels and to kind of break through. But then we still have to remain consistent with what we do, with who we are, right? With how we live our life to be able to keep what you've kind of built and what you're continuing to build. So I think that's just something to kind of keep in mind, and that I tend to remind myself of, because challenges come, storms come, but the sun is always shining on the other side of the clouds. And I think just kind of trying to remain positive no matter what happens. I think that is a key to it. Mindset is something that we can control, right? Our behavior, no matter what's going on around us, we can't control, the world or everything going on around us. All we can control is how we react to what's going on. So I think that's something that, just kind of telling yourself that day in and day out and doing what we need to do. We know the activities we need to do to hit what we need to hit and want to hit. And I think that's just, that would be my advice in that regard.
As we start to wrap down, and I appreciate you guys for joining us today, I want to ask you this, and because I hear you guys talk about, so you're 37 and what it looks like when you're 45, but what does that look like? I mean, you're an unfinished business, and you may always be unfinished, but you'll continue to refine that and hone. But what does the future roadmap look for Dutko Ragen?
Hey, well, Lord willing, I'm still around.
Pushing 40. Yeah, so Sean always jokes me, like, I always wanted to be able to retire at 40, 39, literally today. And so that's something that's always been like a big goal of mine. I don't even know why it was a goal that I made for myself. I've got way too much energy, but that was my kind of long-term goal. And I think now, like, we see ourselves being in this business, like Sean said, Lord willing, into our 50s. And the goal now is to provide opportunity to continue to grow an organization that adds value to people's lives. And so, like you mentioned, we are always growing and we're always looking for talent. So the vision for the next 5 to 10 years is to be like 3 million and then a 5 million and then a $10 million real estate business from a revenue or commission perspective. So that 3, 5, and 10, and we kind of see that being the main hub that supports other businesses for other ancillary businesses. And so we have our investment arm, we have our rental portfolio arm, we have our wholesaling arm. And then we kind of see those arms growing with the real estate sales team being the kind of center piece of that. And then also opening up eventually title, construction, and property management, and possibly mortgage. But essentially, we feel like our hub needs to be a little tighter and our sales business needs to be a little bit bigger in order to support those businesses from day one and be profitable. And then, that business kind of grows with our clients' referrals and serve a broader community. So like Sean mentioned, we brought on a talented operational person last year, and we kind of had to redefine that goal very clearly. And so I think we feel very clear and very good about that goal. And now we're just looking for that missing person to start that next organization.
Exactly. Yep. And then, you hear a lot of these teams that are now starting to hit the $1 billion mark, right? $1 billion in sales on an annual basis. We've been hovering in between that 100, 120. So I think one thing, like a big goal is, that 5 to 10 year, maybe sooner if we can, but like get to $1 billion, in annual sales. If you can do that, if you can build a hub where, we still have our team that's doing X amount, but then we can also support others and get to that. That is like the big goal and the vision of kind of what we're building this for. And then just enjoy the journey on the ride there.
That's awesome. And I love that because we're fortunate to be around some incredibly talented people, both locally, nationally in our organization, right? And for you guys, it's like there is no complacency, like, well, I'm the big dog and I'm cool and I can sit back, because you don't have to look far to go, there are other people that I'm perpetually going to be chasing. And there's no doubt in my mind that you guys will hit that mark. Listen, Sean and Corey, I can't thank you more than enough for joining us today. I'm very excited that we'll be able to release this. And for all of you watching at home, this has been Entrepreneurial Impact with Sean and Corey from Dutko and Ragen. And thank you all for tuning in.